Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Booth, and on behalf of the South Fulton Coalition Board of Directors, we'd like to welcome you to this town hall forum for the mayor's race. The South Fulton Coalition is an organization comprised of business and civic leaders as well as residents. The mission of the South Fulton Coalition is to implement action programs such as this town hall that we're having tonight for the continued improvement, accountability, and integrity of the City of South Fulton government and its elected officials. We found out earlier that the other candidate, the incumbent mayor, Bill Edwards, has a previous commitment. So, Councilman Khalid, once you're on, you'll have this whole meeting to yourself. So, let me go over a couple of ground rules before we get started, and we're going to ask you to abide by them. You don't need your video on unless you'd like to ask your question on camera, so please cut your video off unless you're speaking on camera. Same difference with your microphone. I won't give any warnings. I'll just mute you or I'll cut your microphone off, okay? So the candidate, Councilman Khalid, who's on with us now, he'll have 5 minutes to make his opening remarks. That's standard on what we give. But today, Councilman, you can take up to 10 minutes if you like, since the other candidate isn't here. You'll be asked questions and you'll have 2 minutes to respond, but we're completely flexible tonight because, again, the other candidate is not here. Questions will be directed from the residents and people in attendance, that is. And if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your electronic hand using your reaction features, which you can find either at the top or the bottom of your screen, or you can just type it into the chat. Please be respectful to the moderator, which is myself, and to everyone on the call and in the meeting, especially the candidate. Any inappropriate questions or any type of disruptions will not be tolerated. This will be your only warning. I'll kick you out of the room if I need to. And this is going to be co-moderated by my colleague, Richard Snellings. Richard, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Ron. I'm going to share my screen. I just wanted to show everybody where we stand in terms of the early vote count. So I'm sharing my screen now. You should see it momentarily. All right, Ron, can you see my screen?
Can see it fine. Yes, sorry about that.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is information that arrived from Fulton County. I will post a link to this information, but it breaks down all of the early vote precincts within the county. Now, if you focus on the South Fulton Service Center, the Southwest Arts Center, and the Wolf Creek, you'll see that these are the number of votes that have been cast yesterday, because yesterday was the first day of early voting. So that totals about 561 votes for South Fulton. Now, I just want to caution you, not assume that all of these 561 votes are for candidates in South Fulton. These can also be candidates for the city of Atlanta. Now, if we contrast this to early voting for the November section, the very first day of early voting, October 12th, you can see the numbers as well. On October 12th, there was about 453 votes that were cast. So we're doing pretty good to be in excess of 100 votes over November 2nd numbers. So I just wanted to share this information with the public just so you have an idea of how things are with the early vote count. Now, Ron, I will stop sharing and I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard. And at this time, Councilman Khalid, this is pretty much your show. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. And you'll have 10 minutes for your opening remarks. But again, we're completely flexible on the time. This is your show. So please make your opening remarks beginning now. Councilman, please unmute yourself and your video. There you go.
I'm sorry about that. I am just, I guess it's my time. Give me one more second, please.
No problem. And by the way, you look great on TV tonight.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're always our own worst critic. Okay, so we're gonna hop right into it. I was actually just can everyone hear me all right?
Hear you loud and clear, yes.
Perfect. We just had a news story air on WSB TV. It was the first news story about our election. Mr. Snellings is right. There is an election happening in Atlanta. There's also a runoff election happening in Fairburn. And very often, the goings on in local politics in cities outside of Atlanta is not covered by the news. And the media is our fourth estate. It is a check and balance on the powers of elected officials that can be corrupted if they are not being covered and explained to residents and people. So I want to thank WSB TV and Taisha Fernandez, who had agreed to moderate this debate if both candidates showed up. I do think there's something to be said about a candidate or an elected official that runs from the media and that runs from news coverage. And I won't do that. I think that it's important, especially in a city like ours, where many of our residents don't know that we exist, right? Where I am telling people on Old National that I am running to be their mayor. And they're like, oh, you running against Kasim, you running to replace Keisha. And I'm like, you don't live in Atlanta, dog. But we don't cover these stories enough. So again, that story was super important. And one of the things that I want to do as mayor is make sure that our city gets news coverage for positive things. We know when I talk about this campaign being black on purpose and our city being black on purpose, we know that. So that is not, and I want to be clear because there are people that are spreading all kinds of rumors about me and my campaign, and I'm sure we'll get into that tonight. But I do not hate white people. My people are like, oh, some of my best friends are white. My best friend is literally a white guy. We went to college together from Flint, Michigan. Shout out to John if you're watching tonight. But it's about policy. We know that South Fulton is 92% African American. We know that the south side of Fulton County is suffering from the same issues that the south side of Chicago or the south side of Los Angeles, DC, name your city, South Bronx, all of these places that are inhabited primarily by black and brown people suffer many of the same issues: undervalued homes, underperforming schools, undercapitalized entrepreneurs, and a media that is often fixated on telling the worst stories about us. So we've never had a problem getting news coverage when someone is shot in South Fulton, even though we've had double-digit decreases in crime. Atlanta's crime has gone up 60% in the past year. We've had double-digit decreases, but that's what you see on the news, right? And it doesn't help when you have a police chief raiding clubs for small amounts of drugs, but doing these drug raids with a SWAT tank and then inviting news reporters to ride in the SWAT tank as we raid this club, right? It just presents an image of South Fulton that places, again, like the south side of Chicago and south side of DC have always struggled with. So the lack of investment that we've seen sometimes comes from our own elected officials colluding with reporters to tell negative stories about us so that we can continue spending all of our money on police and not on economic development. I'm running because we are spending 30% of our budget on police and less than 1% on economic development. We cannot police our way to prosperity. I am running because, as you saw in the story on Channel 2 tonight, our current mayor approved most of the warehouses that are surrounding our schools and our subdivisions. He approved these subdivisions without sidewalks or amenities, or with streets that are so narrow that if anyone parks on the street, we can't get an emergency vehicle down the street. We have been fighting, many of us on council, to revise our zoning ordinance, our comprehensive master plan, and our subdivision regulations. Those are in the city of South Fulton, 3 different sets of regulations. And we've had lopsided discussions and rushed through revisions of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan that we are still having to amend every month because we're just not thinking through these things. So as mayor, I'm going to build better, invest more, and rebrand, rename, and remarket our city. There's a lot of, I like the name South Fulton personally, but there is a lot of negative news stories that are attached to it. We cannot distinguish South Fulton County from the city of South Fulton. Even our own elected officials oftentimes will conflate those 2 places when they are talking. So we can't expect that the news wouldn't also do it. Whenever there's something happening in East Point, College Park, Fairburn, or Union City, the news says South Fulton County, and people assume that it's in the city of South Fulton. So we need to rename, rebrand, and remarket our city. I can't wait to talk to you about all of the ideas that I have to make South Fulton everything that it can be, everything that so many of us believe are possible in this new city. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilman. And I'd like to remind everyone, if you have a question, just raise your electronic hand to be acknowledged. And you can also type your question into the chat feature. And in the meantime, if no one else has a question, I guess we'll go with one of the questions that I have for you, Councilman. Dr. Catherine Rao, Carmelita Gums, Helen Willis, Corey Reeves, and Natasha Williams have expressed their allegiance to Bill Edwards' re-election. If you become mayor and they refuse to work with you, what steps will you take to ensure these representatives do the job that the people have elected them to do? And if after giving it your best effort, how would you like for the community to become involved?
Turn it on.
First, I don't believe that if I'm elected that none of those people are going to work with me. I think that elections are part of our democratic process. Unfortunately, in this post-Trump era, they become nasty. They become nasty affairs. They become affairs about people's personal lives or characters, and not really about the issues. One of the things that I've always strived to do, not only for my campaign personally, but for my supporters, for those that support me, is to keep us focused on the issues. I believe that Dr. Catherine Rao, Carmelita Gums, Helen Z. Willis, Corey Reeves, and Natasha Williams all love our city and all believe in our city. We all have the same goal. We may not agree on the route to get there, but we all want what's best for the city. And I think the proof is in the pudding. When I am mayor, one of the first things that I am going to do, which is something that I've said repeatedly, is to go back and take a look at that comprehensive master plan, to take a look at our zoning and our subdivision regulations, and make sure that we have the highest standards in South Fulton, that you can't come here and just throw up anything, whether it's a warehouse or a townhouse. We're only going to allow quality development in our city. And I think that that's something that all 7 council districts can agree on, and that because of the way that the process was rushed, we all have things that weren't included in the comprehensive plan or those subdivision regulations that we are interested in having. So I think what a good leader does is that you start from the things that we agree on, and you build common ground from there. And there's enough around economic development, better delivery of services like public works, sanitation, sidewalks, and speed bumps. There's enough things that we agree on that I don't think that there's going to be as much opposition as possible. And then the final check and balance will always be you all, the residents. The mayor's office is the only citywide elected position. So people from every district have to agree on who the mayor should be. And I think our council is going to stand with our residents, whatever their decision is.
Great. We appreciate and thank you for that response. And a quick facilitation note, Councilman, if you'd like to share any slides as you go along responding to the question, please feel free. I've enabled you to share anything that you'd like to.
Okay.
And the next question, and there's a question coming from Richard, so I'm going to turn it over to Richard. Richard, please take yourself off mute and ask a question.
Thank you. I received a direct question, and the resident wants to know: can you confirm that you support first responders? And we would like you to be clear on defunding the police. Is that something that you support? Thank you
So much for that question. I do support our first responders. I think that it's unfortunate. We've gotten to this place in our politics where we are just intentionally divisive, right? So if I am questioning whether or not we should have a SWAT tank versus a street sweeper, it somehow means that I am not in support of police, or that I'm not in support of first responders. Or if I have personally said that I would require our EMS responders to be vaccinated, that I am somehow not supporting first responders. And I want to take some time to explain these answers. So first, I do believe our EMS people should be vaccinated. There were times, there were discussions that we had throughout this pandemic about mandating people to come back to work, about mandating vaccinations, and about mandating testing. And I've always, while I have been for testing, because I do believe in science, I do also believe in I believe that people should have autonomy over their bodies, whether it is reproductive decisions or whether it is vaccination decisions. And so I've always supported people being able to stay home and work from home if they don't feel safe being vaccinated. Now, if workers become ill who refuse vaccinations, they're going to have to use their own PTO, their own part-time off, to cover those illnesses. Our insurance will still cover them, but for me, I think that is the compromise. And I say that because we've lost a lot of people. I here on Creole Road have lost several seniors in this neighborhood from COVID-19. And while I want everyone to have the right about whether or not they're vaccinated, when you're on an EMS call to a senior person, a medically fragile person, they don't have the option to choose whether they are treated by a vaccinated person or not. And many people are dying who are exposed to this virus. And so I have aunts who live in the city of South Fulton, and I don't want you going to see my aunt if you're not vaccinated. In terms of supporting the police and police funding, I definitely support our police. I am so proud of our double-digit decreases in crime, but I also know that the greatest predictor of crime, there's this great study done in 1983 by a gentleman out of the University of Chicago who won a Nobel Prize in science for this study in science and economics, that showed that the greatest predictor of crime is income inequality, and that the greater the income inequality, the greater the crime. It's no accident that Atlanta has seen this 60%, not South Fulton, but that Atlanta has seen this 60% increase in crime, and Metro Atlanta has the greatest income inequality, including South Fulton, in the nation. A child born poor here is more likely to die poor here than anywhere else in America. And so what I am interested in doing is flat funding the police. We have this speed camera program where we were writing tickets. We are writing tickets. We're only supposed to be writing tickets during school hours for people speeding through school zones. But what we found is that this for-profit company that we contracted with was writing tickets nights, weekends, school holidays, and in 9 months we made $4 million on tickets. In 1 month we wrote 22,000 tickets, and not a single dollar of that money was going to pedestrian safety, even though the entire program was named after a young lady who was hit in the school zone. We were spending no money on making those school zones safer or making anywhere safer for pedestrians. So I created this pedestrian safety fund that took $1 million of that ticket money so that we could begin installing speed bumps in every neighborhood that asks for them. And so if there is a neighborhood, I do invite people to type it in the chat. We have people that are watching the chat from the campaign, or you can just text me. My phone number is 404-545-3900. You can text me the neighborhood. Again, that's 404-545-3900. Text me the neighborhood where you would like to see speed bumps so that we can keep that list going. But that is an example of flat funding, which means that when we get some new source of income, like these $4 million in speed cameras, we don't have to turn all of that over to the police. We can begin funding the programs that have traditionally been defunded over the past several decades. While we have been increasing funding for police, we have been defunding our parks. We've been defunding our public works department. We've been defunding our workforce development and our economic development. So as we create new revenue streams, we want to direct those, we want to invest those into things like public works and economic development that is going to get us a greater return on investment on our tax dollars.
Thank you, sir, for that comprehensive answer. We appreciate it. You actually answered one of my other questions. The next question, Tony has questions in the chat, and he raised his hand also. So Tony, please ask all your questions in one deal. You have the floor.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Councilman, how's it going? It's Anthony Strickland. Actually, as the host mentioned, you did answer one of my questions. However, I feel it is important for our community to be policed well. And as we all may agree, a lot of the crime that we are witnessing and discussing is happening by our younger folks. So what ideas do you have in place to kind of gear and lead our youth and future generations for the future of the city of South Fulton, where there be more leader schools or youth development programs or drug assistance programs? How can we decrease crime and develop our younger individuals moving to the years coming up?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. I'm going to share my screen for this one. And so you're right. This is a little demographic information about the city of South Fulton. You can always find this information as well at khalidcares.com/101. Thank you for allowing me to share my screen. This is something that I try to do often in meetings. And those of you who've been following our city council meetings, you know that one, I've been fighting for us to meet in person once again, but also to use the technology that we have to better educate our residents. So as you can see here, our median age is 35, which is a little younger than the city of Atlanta. It's also younger than the national average and the state average. And you're right, a lot of our crime has been, our number one crime is actually theft from cars and theft of cars. So I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the programs that I think is really important. A lot of people don't know this, but 19% of our land in the city of South Fulton is zoned agricultural. I'm sorry, it might be 17%. But it is a higher number by far than any urban city of our size, right? And so we have multiple working farms, nearly a dozen working farms. Many of them are operated by Black farmers. We have wineries in the city of South Fulton. We need to be doing more to promote that. And in promoting that, we can partner. We can't tell the school system what to do, but we can partner with our parks programs through the school. We run our parks programs. We can create a world-class after-school program. And one of the things that I want to do is use some of these acres to develop what's called a Grown in South Fulton label. If you go to the store, you see these Florida Natural stickers on oranges, right? So this would just promote the circulating of dollars in our own system. And okay, here we go. Kendall Ray Johnson, whose mother and I actually went to high school together at Tri-Cities. Shout out to Tri-Cities. Became the youngest certified farmer in Georgia. She has a USDA number. She is doing business. She's eligible to get federal grants, and so we can subsidize our farmers with just a few $10,000 to grow lots of food. We could supply up to. I'm going to scroll through some of these slides here. We could supply up to 3 grocery stores full of food and produce. That's important because we know that we have an issue of food deserts in our city, but it's also an economic development tool, right? Where we are, again, circulating this money in our community. And I'm going to say something a little radical here. If we can teach people to grow cabbage, we can teach people to grow cannabis. And what we need to do through this Grown in South Fulton program is create the infrastructure where we can control our food supply chain from production to distribution, from farm to table, from the fields to the grocery stores. We have trucks in the city of South Fulton. We're buying more trucks. We could teach our young people to grow this food, to drive these trucks, and then have careers in agriculture. The things that they would be learning around crop temperatures and rotations and seasons and water, the amount of water that different plants need. That is all the science, technology, engineering, and math that we talk about in these STEM schools. So we are creating real life applicable instances where young people can learn. They can see that these things that I'm learning can actually translate into me making money, not just far off in the future, but right now. So that is the kind of thing that I want to use to both capture the imagination of young people, but also build the next generation of entrepreneurs and keep money circulating in our community.
Thank you for that response. And I'm sure you answered Tony's question because he said awesome ideas. There are several questions in the chat, so I'm going to turn it over to Rashard to ask those. Rashard, take yourself off mute, please.
All right, thank you. The first question comes from Rosa. For homebound seniors, what plans will you put in place to help these seniors obtain resources, transportation, food assistance, and are you delivering Thanksgiving meals for seniors?
Thank you so much. I am partnering with an organization to do Thanksgiving meals. So I am going to ask people if you would text the word, and I will put this in the chat. Again, I just love to use our technology. But if you would text the word Fulton to 33777, you will receive mobile updates about, and I am doing it as we speak. You will receive mobile updates and a newsletter. You can also sign up for the newsletter for the city. And it won't just be about my campaign, right? This is information about city council meetings. Anybody who has received these letters can attest. These newsletters can attest to the information that is included in them. But we'll have mobile alerts about that Thanksgiving giveaway. We're going to be doing it on the 24th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving Day. And we're going to have pre-cooked food, because one of the things that we know is, if you can't afford food, you may not have gas. You may not have paid your gas bill. So we don't want to give you a raw turkey and ask you to go home and cook it, right? So we're going to have prepared foods and cooked foods for people of all different dietary conditions. But one of the things that I'm very proud of, and I'm gonna talk about economic development again, is on Old National. So when I first proposed the Downtown Development Authority for Old National Highway, I also proposed a citywide development authority. I was one of the first council people to begin going to these different economic development conferences and learning about the different tools that were available to us now that we're a city. The Downtown Development Authority has a very particular, it was created to do a very particular thing. When you actually read the legislation that was written in the 1970s by the state legislature, it was to revise blighted commercial corridors. We know that outside of the city of Atlanta, right, and outside of the metropolitan area, a lot of Georgia is still rural. And they have a lot of these smaller towns with these main street areas that had become blighted and abandoned in the 70s and 80s with the creation of malls. All of the commerce moved to malls and sort of left these main streets desolate. Well, Old National may not be the kind of small town main street that was originally envisioned in this legislation, but it is a main street. It is the commercial corridor with the highest density of businesses, people, and transit in the city. It is where we can begin growing our commercial tax base and have commercial properties provide more of the revenue for our city versus having to raise taxes or just rely on home tax values. So when I created this Downtown Development Authority, I brought a $50 million deal to the table, 300 new apartments. These are a mock-up of the first phase of them. They were going to be called the Renaissance at Old National. As you can see, they're very modern, but they had these classic touches. And the first phase of the development included 80 units of senior housing. Had we approved the Downtown Development Authority as I had proposed it in 2018, we would actually be opening these 80 units right now on Old National. They were affordable housing based on 60% of the AMI, which is the median income of local families. So there would be like $700 to $1,000 a month for the one bedrooms. We went up to 3 and 4 bedrooms, and it sits right along Old National. It would have been right next to a major shopping center. The deal is still on the table. We may have to move the land somewhere else on Old National, but there's still plenty of land on Old National. So I do think comprehensively about these. One of the jobs that I had before being a council person was I was a MARTA mobility driver. So I drove seniors. And one of the things that I know is that MARTA mobility, which is if those of you aren't familiar with it, is a paratransit bus that will take seniors, disabled, and intellectually challenged people anywhere they want in Fulton or DeKalb. We will drive you to your job in Alpharetta. We will take you grocery shopping at Stonecrest Mall if that's where you want to go. But in order to access that, you have to live within 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop. So we have to be very intentional about where we're building our senior housing because there's already infrastructure in place to support our seniors. We just got to be smart about where we put it.
Thank you, Councilman. And there are several questions in the chat. Rashard's going to ask the next question, but before he does, I just want to ask you if you're going to have time to go over 8, because just answering those questions alone is going to take us past 8 o'clock. Are you good?
I'll try to keep my answers more brief, but yes, we can go a little bit longer.
Thank you very much. Rashard?
Thank you. The next question comes from Pamela. Have the City of South Fulton police officers, to your knowledge, received CARES Act funding?
Yes, we actually did use some of our CARES Act funding, not only to police and fire. So one of the things I'm actually very proud of, and I do want to say this, is that I wrote a resolution in March. The City of South Fulton had the first cases of COVID-19. I don't know if you remember that. There were teachers and teachers' aides at Bear Creek Middle School and Creekside. They were some of our Renaissance. I think there were some of the first COVID-19 cases that we had. And in April of 2020, and in April of 2020, I wrote a resolution that stated that we would not furlough or lay off any workers because of the pandemic. Every city can't say that. The city of Atlanta can't say that. No one was furloughed. No one received a cut in pay. We committed to keep delivering checks to all of our city employees, not just our police and fire, but to all of our city employees. We did do hazard pay through the CARES Act for police and fire, as well as I also pushed for our public works employees, people who are out picking up trash and interacting with the public, our code enforcement officers, anybody that had to interact closely with the public or, be around trash or hazardous materials needed to be getting that money. So that is something that we did authorize.
Thank you, Councilman. One more question from the chat, and then we'll go with Mel Keaton because he had his hand up earlier and then lowered it and raised it again. So Rashard, one more question from the chat.
All right. This next question comes from Michael Edwards. Actually, I'm going to go to Mel Keaton because I got to rephrase this. So Mel Keaton, if you can ask your question.
Okay. As you know, right now we have a lot of the city functions are being handled by a contractor right now, Jacobs. So what is your plan and working with the city council as far as getting those jobs back into the city? Because one of the things that we promoted was when we first became a city that we can live here, work here, play here, and people will have a job in the city to be able to have public works and all the city functions that we normally would do. So what are your thoughts and what are your plans on transitioning from the contractor and transitioning back those jobs into the city that the residents can maintain or be hired to do those functions?
Well, first, I want to apologize as a city council person to Fulton County Public Works employees. Who should have been City of South Fulton Public Works employees. We made a commitment as a council at the beginning of the cityhood process that we would bring over all the employees from the county to the city. I am never going to lie to you. I was not on board with that idea in the beginning. I felt like we had been complaining about the level of service that we had received from the county. So if we weren't satisfied with the level of service that we received from the county, why would we bring over all of the people who provided that service? However, we did make that commitment. And after the commitment is made, I'm going to stick to it. And I just think that is a hallmark of good leadership. It wasn't my decision, but it was the decision of the body. I think that we should have stuck to it. We brought over all of these six-figure department heads from Fulton County. But when it came time to bring over our public works workers, our lowest paid workers in the city, we outsourced them to a private company. And I was livid about it. So I do want to, again, apologize. We did not do right by you in that instance. Now that we've done it, I do want to begin to bring as many of those employees into our city as possible. If they have good working records, if they have been productive, we need to retain as many people in City Hall that we can that are committed to the well-being of our city. One of the reasons that was given for the switch up was because public works equipment is very expensive. I believe the public works budget should be the largest budget in our city, not police, not any other department, not salaries, but public works. And it's because these are your tax dollars and you have given them to the government so that we can provide services for you. And the services that I hear in most demand from residents are street lights, speed bumps in neighborhoods, street pavings, trash pickup, the taking care of our arteries, our main roadways like Camp Creek Parkway, South Fulton Parkway, and Old National Highway and Cascade, beautifying the city. And so I believe that we're going to be able to bring some people over immediately, but it may take a little time for us to be able to buy all of the equipment that we need. However, if we have $300,000 for a SWAT tank, and I do want to say that I have been convinced that we do need that tank. So I am willing to also admit when I am, when I am wrong. I have learned that 90% of the calls that tank has gone out on have actually been crises management when people are having mental health challenges and we need to call in hostage negotiators and things like that. So should we be raiding clubs with it? Absolutely not. But we do need it. But if we have $300,000 for that machine, we definitely have $300,000 or $600,000 for one or two street sweepers that we could begin running immediately and constantly through our city. So that is my plan, to phase in public works, beginning with public works workers.
Thank you, sir. Rashard, next question from the chat.
Thank you. The next question comes from Yoshina Colbert Bradford. What can be done to purchase blight properties at market value? She's asking this question because there are several blighted commercial properties in Atlanta and South Fulton, and she knows some Black investors who want to build neighborhood businesses, but the owners want to sell at high prices that are outrageously high.
That is, ultimately, we are in a capitalist society, and the rules of the capitalist society are that the majority of rights over a property rest with the landowner. We can regulate how land is developed in terms of public safety and building standards, but we cannot tell private owners what to do with their land or how to sell it. What we can do is buy land. We have a $127 million budget. I believe that we need to be buying more of our land. We need to be creating a land bank. We need to be creating programs like those in Atlanta, where if you buy into a disadvantaged neighborhood and you stay for 5 or 10 years, we pay off your down payment for the home, right? So we need to be doing things like that. But in order to do that, we need to start buying and owning land so that we can better control its use. And that is definitely something that we can do. And then we could begin working with our local entrepreneurs to build the sort of things that we want to see built.
Thank you, sir. Next question, Rashard.
Thank you. This next question comes from Dr. Gordon Roll. There are seniors in the Camelot subdivision that are hitting roadblocks, getting help from their councilman in District 6. Some live in deplorable conditions. What can you do to help these seniors?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Roll, for your question, and thank you for your endorsement. I was endorsed by both of the opponents that were running on November 2nd, and Dr. Roll was one of them. So Camelot actually sits in District 5 of our city, which is Councilman Corey Reeves. I know that he has been working diligently to resolve a lot of the issues in Camelot. I have also been working. I have neighbors and friends now that live in Camelot. And I will tell you, I have visited some of the homes, some of the basement apartments in Camelot, and seen black mold on the wall. It is not a condition that is suitable, especially for children, but not for seniors either, not for anyone. And some of those homes may need to be condemned. This is a promise that I will make. As mayor, I will never lie to you, and I will never steal your money. You will not see stories wondering what happened to unaccounted for money in a Khalid administration, and I'm not going to run from the tough conversations. So I've talked about this $50 million development deal for new senior housing. I believe that we're going to have to move some of our seniors out of Camelot and into that senior housing. This is a place where when the land is condemned, the city could buy it. We could create a housing authority, right? Like these are the things that we can do when we're not spending all of our money writing tickets and policing our residents. And we really focus on how do we improve the quality of lives for our residents. But we may need to demolish some of those houses. The commitment that I have made, and I will make again here on camera, and I've talked to people in Camelot, I will move to Camelot on January 1 as mayor of this city. You find me an apartment that doesn't have mold in it, I will move there. I will live in Camelot before we make any decisions about that property. I will live there for 6 months before we make any decisions about that property. But if it is not in livable condition, we are going to have to condemn it and move our seniors and their families to places where they can be safe.
Thank you, sir. And before we get back to the chat, there was a question that was previously sent in, so I want to get to that real quick. It can be quite expensive to recruit, hire, and train employees only for them to resign. In fact, many people have left their jobs at the city, as you alluded to on the news, and many of the exit interviews indicate that they left due to the way management has treated them. What ideas do you have as mayor to ensure that people working at the city of South Fulton enjoy it and are not working in a hostile environment?
I think I would like to think some of the things I have already been doing. I pushed for us to have our council meetings earlier in the day, like the City of Atlanta or the Fulton County Commission. They begin their meetings at 10 o'clock. I understand that that is not a time where many people can attend meetings. We are in this Zoom environment where people can attend things online. We can have special meetings for topics that we know are of great interest. We can have our zoning hearings or hearings about highly controversial resolutions or ordinances. We can do those things in the evening. But for these 6 to 8 hour council meetings, we don't need to be keeping our staff or our citizens up till 11, 12, 1 in the morning. So I've been fighting for that. I've created new holidays on the calendar. I have fought for an increase in benefits. We had an increase in the cost of health benefits, and I fought to absorb all of those costs. We absorbed some of those costs, but I wanted to see us absorb all of the costs because in this pandemic environment, we know that people have costs, prices have been rising for all of these other sorts of things. But I also think that it's just being ethical and transparent and not, unfortunately, the brand of old school politics being played by our mayor and by a lot of people around the state. It's not just happening in this city, but the idea is that if you're not siding with the mayor, if the mayor can't count on you, then your district is going to suffer. Your district is not going to get the things that it needs. You can't punish me without punishing the residents of District 6, who are also your constituents as the mayor, right? And so I want to just create a more ethical, transparent government and a council where everyone can win. You don't have to be on anyone's side. One of the things that I say is that that every time one of our council people shines, the mayor shines and the city shines, and there's enough sunshine for all of us. And so I am going to make sure that all of our council people are winning and succeeding in the initiatives that they are bringing to the city that benefit our citizens. And I think that alone is going to change the culture. And then we're going to make sure that we have qualified staff. I'm going to have another difficult conversation and say that one of the reasons we had such high turnover in our first appointees, a lot of them were interim appointments. Many of the people that were appointed had never had experience in the job that they were doing. So we appointed a judge who had never been a judge, a city manager who had never been a city manager, an HR director and a communications director who had never been an HR director or communications director. We've corrected a lot of those things now, but we got to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions and that we are enabling everyone to succeed, even when they disagree with me, the mayor, or another council person.
Thank you, sir, for that response. Rashard, next question from the chat.
Yes, next question. What is being done to quickly free up funds to landlords and renters suffering from COVID, removing funds faster to landlords for payment?
The short answer is not enough. We know that in the state of Georgia, the CARES Act money, we haven't even gotten to the American Rescue Plan money, right? But the CARES Act money which was the first big bag of money that came through the state and then the county, that only 30% of that money has been given out. So 60% of the 60% of the money hasn't even gotten into the hands of the people that need to get it. I've been a big advocate, even in our American Rescue Plan funding, that those tax dollars are citizens' tax dollars, and we should get as many of them back into their hands as possible. Unfortunately, and I think this happens anywhere, anytime people see a big source of revenue or a big source of money, people begin to salivate about what they could do with it for their own department. So there's sort of a Hunger Games to get this money for my department and my needs. But I think that that's where one of the things that I think that a mayor does is not just be a spokesperson for the city, not just a cheerleader for all of these positive things that are happening in the city, but they are also like the moral voice for the city. And we need a mayor that is not afraid to remind our department heads that all of this money, right down to our salaries, but all of this money is the people's money. And if they are telling us that they want something with their money, we have to listen and give it to them.
Thank you again. Rashard, next question from the chat. There are several more, by the way. Rashard, you're on mute if you're talking.
I apologize. This next question actually comes from the YouTube chat. The city currently has ordinances in place. My question is specifically regarding the parking ordinance. When will the officers be trained to enforce this ordinance?
So thank you. I wrote the parking ordinance, and I want to give a little education about it, and let me see if I can bring it up. Let's use our technology right now. So I wrote the parking. While I'm looking at it, I'm just going to keep talking. I wrote the parking ordinance so that it could be tailored to neighborhoods. So the first thing that people need to know, because we need to give a little education about what the parking ordinance is the way that it came about. Let me start there, where we had a particular subdivision in District 6 off of Old Madison Place, where the post office had just stopped delivering mail. People had not gotten mail for 4 months. The post office alleged it was because they could not drive a straight line down the street. There are this neighborhood, whose design was approved by Bill Edwards, has a bunch of townhomes with one-car garages that are close together. And because there is a shortage of parking, because we didn't require any parking pads or any additional parking spaces, people park on the streets. They would park in front of mailboxes, and the mailboxes would be blocked. This was a neighborhood that needed parking. And so what we did is that we came out with our public works department. We looked at where the fire hydrants were. We measured the width of the street, and we figured out where can people park safely that will not impede vehicles. And then how can we mark these parking spaces so that people know where it is they would be able to park. And we came up with this this ordinance for resident initiated parking zones. I'm going to bring it up now so that you can see it. This is the ordinance. One of the things that I like to do is have a plain text explanation. I'm very big on political education. So one of the things that I'm going to require as mayor is that all of our ordinances, if they're 7 pages or 70 pages, they have this plain text explanation that explains to you what is the purpose of the ordinance. As you can see, I went a little bit further here and actually included a flow chart that shows how residents could initiate parking and ask for this parking. So what I want you to know is that you can do this right now. You can contact the Public Works Department. You want to get signatures of at least 50% of the people in your neighborhood. It's like a 50+1. You want to get that. You want to get those signatures. You want to create a parking diagram. Let me see if there's a diagram here at the end of this document. There isn't. Here's the application. You want to create a parking diagram that says you want to work with the Public Works Department to create this parking diagram that shows this is where we're going to have parking on the side of the street. So our Public Works Department will work with you to come up with that. And then they will come up with a price for how much it will cost to either put up these signs. You can do colored curbs as an option. You can mark the actual parking spaces as they do in a lot of urban areas. So you have a lot of options to delineate where you want parking and no parking. The last piece of the puzzle is actually coming up with the funding. So we can get you all the way to the parking diagram, and then your community would have to come up with the funding, or we would supply the funding as needed. As we begin to get these applications, one of the things that I hope to do as mayor is every 6 months we take a look at our budget and we do a mid-year budget adjustment. That will be coming up in March. If we see that there is a huge request for these parking spaces, same with the speed bumps, and we need to up the budget so that we can get people the things that they're asking for, I'm going to propose that we do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And you're getting a lot of accolades in the chat box. I just thought I'd mention that. Richard, next question, please.
All right, the next question is a direct message that was sent. Supporters of your opponent and some of your colleagues on city council have been posting some pretty scandalous pictures from your Instagram and even discussing your sex life. Do you think this affects your ability to be mayor and spokesperson for our city?
I actually think that it increases. It increases my effectiveness as mayor. I think the first thing is that people want a mayor who is honest, and people want a mayor who is real. I'm 45 years old. Some of the pictures on my Instagram from 10 years ago, I'm not proud of. I wouldn't put up today, certainly as a city councilman or a mayor. But as my mom used to say, I had a whole life before you came along, right? So before the city of South Fulton, I was a single bachelor living downtown, and I had a single bachelor's Instagram. I'm not going to deny the pictures, right? That is a part of who I am. I do think that I have since becoming a councilman used my Instagram, my TikTok, my Twitter, all of these social media things, my Snapchat, right, to bring positive attention to the city, whether it's Juneteenth or legislation that we have for speed bumps in our city. I think that we do have to have a mayor that is of the time, of the generation, that can communicate to people across multiple mediums and to speak the language of the people in those mediums. So I think that I have done a good job of that. I think that in terms of just my traditional speaking on media and on camera, I think that I'm a great spokesperson for the city, and I'm a great cheerleader for the city. But I do think that there is just a record of of honesty and realness and relatability. And then the last thing that I want to say is that that it's unfortunate that we're even talking about my Instagram or my personal life. People have really been pushing for me to hit back. The mayor and other people, other members of council, like other people have things going on in their personal life, and I'm just not interested in talking about those things. I think that we need to talk about the issues. If you hear me attacking the mayor, it will be about the mayor's record of not only voting for warehouses, but motioning for warehouses to be built, motioning for the approval of subdivisions that were built to low standards, and not holding developers accountable, and asking questions about who is financing the campaign. Right? I don't care about what you do in your personal life. I care about how you are voting. And I care about whether your votes have already been bought and paid for by the very developers that we are trying to regulate. That's why my campaign has not taken a single dollar of developer money, because I know I'm saying in January and February, I'm going to have to come and regulate you. And so I just think you can't take money from people that you need to regulate, especially when they don't live in the city. The second thing really just goes to the tone, right? John Amici, he was an NBA player actually before he became a behavioral psychologist, right? And he has this saying that I think is true in sports and in politics, and that is the worst behavior tolerated without accountability becomes the culture of an organization. So we have council members that are talking about other council members' personal lives and levying personal attacks about people's character. We have community leaders who are doing that in support of this mayor. I think that as a leader, when people who are following you, whether you have instructed them to do it or not, when they are behaving inappropriately in a way that brings our city down, you have to call that out. You have to say, I don't want that. I know that people may be doing that to support me. I don't want it. And I'm saying to my supporters, I know you all may have information about Bill Edwards' personal life or his taxes or whatever. I don't want to talk about that. I want us to stay focused on the issues of economic development, warehouses, and residential development, the voting record of this mayor, because that is what affects people's lives. And that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you very much for that response. And I'm sure a lot of people agree with you, and I do appreciate it personally as well. I'd like to do a quick facilitation note. It's a few minutes after 8, but I want to let you know, because I know you're willing to go over a little bit, Councilman, and we appreciate that. But you need to know that there's over 100 people watching you now, and based on the comments, they're getting a lot out of what you're saying. So we appreciate it, and we'll keep going as long as you can stay on.
All right, let's go for 30 more minutes.
Okay, good deal.
Of other people's time, so we'll stop at 8:30, and if people have more things, you can continue to email me. I'll make sure that all my contact information is in the chat.
Okay. A lot of these are comments. Honesty and transparency mixed with a large amount of accountability would ensure a successful lead administration, which I think is great. And I'd appreciate it if you would raise your hands for any more questions. It'd be a lot better if you could just speak them out loud to the councilman, and we can go a lot quicker that way. Again, these are comments mixed with questions. You're speaking the truth regarding the moral voice of the people, Khalid. No one wants to be dismissed or ignored. Thank you for enlightening us to options other than what we have experienced with the current administration. Thank you for speaking so intelligently and eloquently with vision rather than the political speak we hear too often. Khalid is a real dude. Yes, he's a great speaker and leader. Great truth. I feel very hopeful about the city with this young, smart, articulate visionary. Khalid is Obama-esque. I guess is the best I can pronounce that. I have learned more from Councilman Khalid from day one, and he is not the mayor. That quote was so deep, I'm not sure which that one that was referring to. It's time to change the culture of the administration of the city of South Fulton. It's time for a change. Change is good. Vote, everyone. First time I've seen a candidate answer unscripted questions in this manner. Team Khalid, regarding the impact of, I don't think Gloria finished this question, regarding the impact of warehouses on our community. It sounds like there's something after that. Gloria, can you go ahead and type it in if you would, please? Okay, and if I don't see anything else pop in from you, Gloria, she typed something in. She typed a link. I'm not going to click on the link.
I do, and I'm scrolling through it. If you don't mind, if I could just address, because I do see some more questions about Camelot in the chat and about what we can do. Would it be okay to just respond quickly about that?
Absolutely, sir. Go right ahead.
So I do see Miss Perry's comment that this is one of the people that I made the commitment to, right? That I would move into Camelot in January. One of the things that I'm very proud of, there's been conversation that I haven't done a lot in my district, right? Which is a lie. We've actually opened the city's largest and perhaps only medical center, community health partners on Old National Highway. We also opened the largest expansion of Atlanta Habitat for Humanity in the organization's history. They now have a South Regional Center in Restore on Old National Highway. If you all are familiar with that, we'll be releasing a video that gives a preview about that if you signed up for our newsletter and mobile alerts. But one of the things that Atlanta Habitat does is help people fix up and restore their homes. They have programs that are just for seniors to do that. The city of Atlanta has a great program that I believe that we should copy and duplicate that provides financial assistance for seniors who want to fix up their homes. So those are things, again, where homes can be repaired, where mold can be remediated, that I would be all in favor of doing and trying before I say we just demolish Camelot, which is why, again, I am committing to living there myself. I want to do everything that is possible. And I think that when you have someone living amongst the people and living through the problem, you can really trust them to do everything that's in their power to resolve the problem, which is one of the reasons that I believe Old National will never get the attention that it deserves until it elects a mayor who is from Old National. But I do want to say, even though I am saying that, I will be mayor for the entire city, but understanding that this south side of the south side has suffered from systemic disinvestment from our Fulton County Commission as well. And so that's why we just got to prioritize the investment there. And because it will also yield the biggest return on commercial tax revenues, which are revenues we're not getting from your property taxes as homeowners.
Thank you, sir. The next question will come from the chat. Richard, please.
Thank you. Will City of South Fulton get a hospital or a healthcare facility so we do not have to travel to other counties for healthcare?
So this is one of the areas where I think it's really important to work with the state. We can't just bring a hospital, right? A hospital is not like a Walmart or a Whole Foods where you can make a pitch and the hospital comes. We have to get a certificate from the state authorizing us to have one. It also does have to make dollars and cents for hospitals. Hospitals in general lose money, right? But where where we can really combat this problem is in preventative healthcare, right? So I'm very proud that the city of South Fulton, that here in District 6, we did open a comprehensive medical center that has dentistry, that has services for seniors, it has pediatrics, and all of these different programs. I've talked again about creating this Grown in South Fulton label and making sure that we have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That seems like a small thing. It seems like a hokey thing, but public health epidemiologists who study this particular area, this field of health science, will tell you that that has a huge impact on the health outcomes in any area, right? The access to exercise, the access for our seniors to exercise and have senior programs. I've been fighting right now. We were charging seniors $25 a month to use Welcome All Park. I've gotten that reduced to zero. It's now free, except for this line dancing class. They're still being charged $25 a month. We're going to make sure that they are not charged for that, because we know people getting out and moving and staying active are going to be great preventative measures. But the creation of a hospital is something that we need our state reps to do, right? Our state reps, some of them have been very involved in the city of South Fulton and our politics and our council meetings and what we have going on. But what I want to do is refocus our state reps on what they can be doing at the state level to improve outcomes here in South Fulton, like getting us that certificate for a hospital, like getting us economic development, like the cyber center that we've seen millions and millions of dollars being spent on in Augusta, and the millions of dollars that go to the Port of Atlanta and the Port of Savannah into Atlanta, because their state lawmakers are working on bringing economic development deals to the area. And then finally, our roads. Places like South Fulton Parkway and Camp Creek Parkway, Old National, and Cascade. These are all Campbellton, Cascade Palmetto Road, Highway 92, anything that says state route. These are state roads. They're overseen by the Georgia Department of Transportation. And our state reps have sway over that department and over those officials, and even appoint our representatives. If our representatives are not getting us the kind of development, either for road repairs or cleaning or road improvements, those are the things we need our state reps to work on. What I am seeing when I look down Camp Creek Parkway and South Fulton Parkway is the worst concrete job I have ever seen. I just don't even know how to say that, this very tacky fence that's been put up. It's just a really bad job. And I have to wonder how much money we spent on that and who we paid to do that, and if that would have been acceptable on Ronald Reagan Parkway in Gwinnett or in Sandy Springs. And so we've got to refocus our state reps on bringing the goods home for our city the way that other state reps are doing.
Thank you for that response. Rashard, next question, please.
All right. The next question, I just lost it. 1 second. Now, how will the rest of the residents that do not live in Old National benefit from these proposed initiatives?
So there are some initiatives that I've talked about. I know that I talk a lot about Old National. I was a councilman for Old National. I was born and raised in Old National. I'm always going to be a cheerleader for that. However, again, it's important to understand that 17, and I'm just putting in the chat now a video about that comprehensive medical center that we did open in District 6. But only about 15% of our land is zoned commercial. 85% of our land is zoned residential or agricultural. 60% of our revenues. We have a $127 million budget. 60% of that money comes from homeowners' property taxes, which means that the only way to get more money, or the fastest way to get more money, is to raise property taxes. What we need to do is create new revenue streams. So whether it's Old National, whether it's Cascade, whether it's Fulton Industrial Boulevard, we need to be increasing the ability of our commercial nodes to attract companies, corporations, businesses, and patrons, and then increase our ability to generate revenues in those areas. So the first way that you're going to see this benefit the city is that you're just going to see us have more revenue. 127 million sounds like a lot of money, but I'm going to tell you that the city of Sandy Springs has this roughly the same population as the city of South Fulton, 100,000 people, and their budget is nearly $400 million. And their city is a third of our size. So they have 3 times as much money to spend on each resident and each square mile of their city. The city of Atlanta, that's 100 square miles, it's the same size as our city, has $1 billion budget. So though $127 million is nothing to scoff at, we can do a lot with that money. I think that we can be doing more with that money. It is still not a great amount of money for the size of the city that we have. So increasing these revenues is going to increase the services that we have across the city. But I want to talk about some things that I've done as councilman that have benefited our entire city. One was the creation of the Blighted Property Fund. We have knocked down houses now in every district of the city, from Cascade to Old National. Many of these houses sat like abandoned or burned out for over a decade, simply because we had never put any money in our city budget to take care of these houses and knock them down. And so we talked a little bit about that. The other one is this pedestrian safety fund. This is real money. This is $1 million of real money that goes to every district in the city, not just Old National. Everywhere, especially where you have legacy neighborhoods where they don't have a mandatory HOA, they can't just raise an assessment by $5 for spread it over 500 homes for a year and then pay for speed bumps, because they don't have that ability. They don't have people paying into a mandatory HOA. So a lot of our legacy neighborhoods, like Red Oak, like Loch Lomond, where people, we have seniors on fixed incomes, have beautiful homes, but their neighborhood needs speed bumps. We can now put those in. There's money for that across the city. And so the programs that I'm talking about, the Grown on South Fulton label, will create produce grown in South Fulton that everyone in the city of South Fulton can buy.
Thank you very much, sir. This next question comes from Miss Amelia Walker. If you would take yourself off mute and ask your question, please. You're on mute if you're talking. Okay, we'll go with the chat. Rashard, do you have another question from the chat? And while Rashard's pulling that together, let me just mention I'm very impressed with you talking and answering so intelligently and typing in the chat at the same time. That's very impressive.
I mean, I'm a millennial. That's what we do. Actually, millennial adjacent. I should let people know I'm actually 45. One of the questions people ask is like, "Are you old enough to be mayor?" And I'm like, I am fully grown, but I love technology, and yeah, I'm going to use it as mayor.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Right.
Rashard, do you have the next question?
Yes. The next question comes from YouTube. How do you plan to bring restaurants back to the Old National area?
So one of the things, I'm going to use the technology again, since we just talked about that. So one of the things that we need to look at is the comprehensive plan for our city and the land use map. I want to bring that up so people, because you're going to be seeing this a lot as mayor. I'm going to be talking about this a lot. You're going to be seeing these. You're going to be seeing these maps a lot. And I really need to just bring our future land use map. I have it now. Okay, let me share this screen. Okay, so this is our this is our future land use map. I want to direct your attention to these character areas. So anyone can just Google South Fulton future land use map. We will get this up on KhalidCares.com if it's not already up somewhere. I believe it's on KhalidCares.com/economy. One of the things I was very in the movement for Black Lives, I was a coordinator for the political education working group. And that is where I really began to learn the power that local government has to regulate the things that people care most about. Whether police can kick down your door and shoot you in your house in your sleep, like Breonna Taylor. What qualifies as affordable when we're making these formulas for affordable housing and who's eligible to live in affordable housing? How do we do economic development? All of those things are decided by city council. So I spend a lot of time doing political education. And from the beginning of my campaign, I've actually used my campaign website just to educate voters about our city and what's possible. So this is our land use map. The key over here sort of explains the different character areas. That just means, right, like where we're going to put the agriculture, where we're going to put the business parks, where we're going to put the industrial areas. So you see we have this community live work, we have this local live work, we have this regional live work. Those are kind of bland names, and I'm going to let you just see, you can kind of see these districts, right? What we don't talk about in this map is, where's our entertainment district? Where is the district right now in the city of South Fulton? And whenever I visit HOAs, and particularly when I'm talking to my seasoned citizens, I always ask them, how many of you have children who were born here in the city? And nearly everybody's hands go up. And then I say, how many of your children want to move here when you pass? How many of them want this house? How many of them want to move back to South Fulton? And the answer is not very many. We have our fastest growing population is seniors, even though we have this young population. And it's because we're losing a lot of our young people to Atlanta. This is also happening not just in South Fulton. It's happening in Gwinnett. It's happening in Cobb. Young people want to live in the city. They don't want to have to spend an hour commuting in traffic to go out or to go to work. They want everything in one neighborhood. So you're seeing the rise of places like the Beltline, of Edgewood, of West Midtown. And what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I know from my own personal experience, because I actually only moved back to South Fulton. I was living in West Midtown. I only moved back because my mother and my aunt were sick, and I moved back to help take care of them. But I was happy where I was living, because there is nowhere in South Fulton that you can buy a high-rise apartment or a high-rise condo. If I want to live on the 20th floor and have a view and have a building with a dog park and restaurants at the bottom, we don't have anything like that in the city of South Fulton. If I want to live in a loft that has 15-foot ceilings and exposed brick, because I'm an artist and that's the kind of life that I live, we don't have any housing stock like that in the city of South Fulton. So one of the things that we need to be looking at when we look at this map, when we zoom in and look at Old National, is we know this is the highest density of people, transit, and businesses. We know that this is already an entertainment district where people are coming. How do we upscale this district so that we attract millennials and tech entrepreneurs, people with good jobs, that want to be a part of this community as it is. We don't want to gentrify and change any part of South Fulton, but we want people who are the children of our residents who appreciate that lifestyle. We want them to have a place to live. And so the plan for bringing restaurants, I didn't forget the question, but the plan for bringing restaurants back to Old National is to create the kind of environment where restaurateurs want to come to Old National. And then to attract restaurateurs, one of the things that Duluth and Sewanee have been really good at is they have been reaching out not to your traditional chains, your Red Lobsters and your Olive Gardens, because they're going to move wherever they can get tax breaks. You should know that every restaurant and most of the stores that are on Camp Creek now were on Old National. And they didn't leave Old National because of crime. They didn't leave Old National because we didn't support them. Those are popular narratives that we put out all the time, and they're lies, and we repeat them, and they're lies. They moved because the Camp Creek Marketplace gave all of them a 20-year tax break. Said you don't have to pay taxes for 20 years if you move your business here. And so big box retailers and chain restaurants are always going to move wherever they can get the tax breaks. But when you have smaller businesses, local businesses that are invested in the community, that own the land that they sit on, and are not just leasing big boxes from retail developers, they're going to stay in a community. And that's what we've seen in places like Duluth and Sewanee. And we've also now seen it in College Park. Downtown Main Street College Park has a strip of Black-owned restaurants, of locally owned restaurants. I've been talking to one of the owners, Juan and G, who own both Breakfast Boys, which is an incredible breakfast place in Main Street College Park, and Virgil's in College Park. And they want to open a restaurant in South Fulton, but what they've said is we want to own the land that we sit on. And we need to have the kind of demographic that is going to support, $14 drinks or $14 plates of food, and that's more than one or two seniors going Sunday after church. We have to have the kind of density where people are going there for lunch, where people are going there for dinner. Many restaurants make their money during the lunch rush, which is why you see all behind Camp Creek Park Marketplace are thousands of apartments all along West Midtown and Peachtree and the Peachtree Street spine, where you see all of these restaurants and dining and then entertainment venues, right? Like the Illuminarium on the Beltline, or a Dave and Buster's, or things like that. You just have a high density of people living. So we've got to create the conditions for that, and that's what I want to do.
Thank you, Councilman. And there's only 2 minutes left, so we'll let Richard ask one more question from the chat, and then we'll let you go. We appreciate you spending this extra 30 minutes with us. Richard?
Right. Yes, this is from the Zoom chat. While the Comprehensive Medical Center is a needed improvement, it does not address the need for level 1 trauma care. What plans are moving forward for a hospital complex to serve South Fulton?
Again, that is a question for your state reps. That is something that is handled at the state level. I'm going to be clear as a mayor on what my job is, what a county commissioner's job is, and what the state rep's job is. I'm not going to try and do things that the county should be doing. I'm not going to try and do things that the state should be doing. And I would ask them not to do our jobs as city council people. If we all just focus in the areas of our purview with the best interests of our residents at heart, we will get the most. So I'm going to be working with our state reps and encouraging our state reps to get that level 1 trauma center. One of the things that we also need to do is expand the Affordable Care Act, which we haven't done in Georgia, which would provide millions of dollars, not only for a hospital in South Fulton, but for many hospitals. What we've seen is that in the states that did not expand Obamacare, they did not take that Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act, they've had more hospital closings throughout the state. Well, one of the first places that I one of the first campaigns I worked on was in Milledgeville, Georgia, and in Eatonton, Georgia, they have a hospital that no longer delivers babies because it's just not financially viable to have an obstetrics unit. So people travel to Macon actually to have their children. So that expansion of the Affordable Care Act is something that we need to be pushing for in the state level. I'm very proud that the person that I believe is going to be the Democratic nominee and the next governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, I've worked for, I know personally, and have helped to bring to South Fulton twice. Should she or whoever is running as a Democrat who become the nominee, I'm going to make sure that they come to South Fulton. I'm also going to invite the Republican nominee and make sure that they come to South Fulton. Before I created this electoral college and election holiday here in the city of South Fulton, we had never had a candidate for governor of any party visit South Fulton or Old National Highway. And so I'm going to make sure that we are getting the attention from the candidates because we have the votes. We have shown that in the January election in 2020, and we're going to show it again in this election, that we have the votes to change directions and chart new courses for Georgia here in the city of South Fulton.
Thank you for that response, Councilman. And thank you, everybody, for your participation. And Councilman Khalid, we wish you all the best in the future, and may God bless you and keep you. And for everyone else, we'll make sure that this video is available online. And as the councilman mentioned earlier, you can email them, you can call them, or text them. So please take advantage of that if you have additional questions. Thank you again. I hope everybody has a good night and a good upcoming weekend. God bless. Bye-bye.
If I could just make a closing statement, if that's all right.
Yes, sir. That's fine. Go right ahead.
I thought we were going to have a debate. I hate that the mayor couldn't be here to talk with me and the residents about our contrasting visions, because I do think that the entire electorate loses out when we are not all participating in the conversation. So I'm going to come to every debate. I'm going to talk to whoever is holding a forum about this mayor's race, because it's that important. But I will say, you cannot keep electing the same people and expecting different results. If you are satisfied with the direction that the city of South Fulton is headed in, if you think we've been doing a great job and you have no complaints, then by all means, please re-elect Mayor Bill Edwards. I think that we can do better. If you think that we can do better, I'm asking you to please vote for Khalid in this election. My name is Khalid Kamau. I was born and raised here in the city. I'm the only person running that was born and raised here, that has experience as a council person, the imagination of a millennial, and the integrity of a community activist. Early voting is happening right now through November 24th. Please visit KhalidCares.com to find an early voting center, or please go vote on Tuesday, November 30th. We cannot have a new city if you are not involved in picking new leaders. South Fulton forever.
I thank you and I appreciate that. And I echo the councilman's comments. Please vote, regardless of who you vote for. Please get out and vote. The next 4 years of this